Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Oh Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad Paramamsa Pravkacharya Satarasatsi Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Srila Prabhupada ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Ki Jayam Vishnupad Paramamsa Pravkacharya Satarasatsi Srimad Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Sri Guru Parampara Ki Ananta Kote Vaishnavrinda Ki Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Prem se Guru Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktavrinda Ki Shri Radha Krishna Guru Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Shiv Nam Ki, Shinavdev Mayapurdam Ki, Ganga Maya Munmaya Ki, Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Ki, Samaveta Bhaktavrinda Ki, Shri Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadari. Yasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Yasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tiha Vanacharya. Yamuna Tiha Vanacharya. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivanadari. Yasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Yasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tiha Vanacharya. Yamuna Tiha Vanacharya. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Prabhudakacharya Asadhara Sadhu Shri Shriman His Divine Grace Lacy Bhaktivedanta Swami Raj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Haribol Slava Zabrani Bhaktam Slava Shri Gurui Shri Gurangi Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthapute Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharne Nirvishesha Shundavadi Paskyadyade Satarne. Om Agyanatamanandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksura Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Pandeham Shigaro Shiyuta Parakamalam Shigaram Vaishnavam Scha Shirupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Vrijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiva Sakans Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpate
Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanshena Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishubhanu Sudha Devi Pranamami Hri Priye Vanchakapa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patidanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Divinity and Divine Service, text number 12. Tat Chidadana Munayo. Is it 12? Oh, someone did 30. Oh, so much for studying for the verse. It's all right. Atak Pumbir Dvija Shesta. Vanashrama Vibhagashaha Svanustitasya Dharmasya Samsiddhir Haritoshanam Atak Pumbir Dvija Shrestha Vanashrama Vibhagashaha Svanustitasya Dharmasya Samsiddhir Haritoshanam Dear Haritoshanam Atak Pumbir Dvija Shesta Vanashrama Vibhagashaha Svanustitasya Dharmasya Samsiddhir Haritoshanam Tak Pumbir Dvija Shesta Vanashrama Vibhagashaha Svanustitasya Dharmasya Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. Ladies. Atak Pumbir Dvija Shesta Vanashrama Vibhagashaha Svanustitasya Dharmasya Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. Ata so Pumbi by the human being Dvija Shrestha, how best among the twice born, Varna Ashrama, the institution of 4 castes and 4 orders of life, Vibhagashaha, by the division of Svanustitasya, of one's own prescribed duties, Dharmasya, occupational, Samsiddhi, the highest perfection, Hari, the personality of Godhead, Toshanam, pleasing. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O best among the twice born, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation, according to caste divisions and orders of life, is to please the personality of Godhead. Please repeat. O best among the twice born. It is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation, according to caste divisions and orders of life, is to please the personality of Godhead. Purport. Human society all over the world is divided into 4 castes and 4 orders of life. 4 castes are the intelligent caste, the martial caste, the productive caste, and the laborer caste. These castes are classified in terms of one's work and qualification, and not by birth. Then again, there are 4 orders of life, namely the student life, the householder life, the retired, and the devotional life. In the best interest of human society, there must be such divisions of life. Otherwise, no social institution can grow in a healthy state. And in each and every one of the above-mentioned divisions of life, the aim must be to please the supreme authority of the personality of Godhead. The institutional function of human society is known as the system of Varna and Ashram, Varna Ashram Dharma, which is quite natural for the civilized life. The Varna Ashram institution is constructed to enable one to realize the absolute truth. It is not for artificial domination of one division over another. When the aim of life, that is, realization of the absolute truth, is missed by too much attachment for indriya priti, for sense gratification, as already discussed herein, the institution of the Varna Ashram is utilized by selfish men to pose an artificial predominance over the weaker section. In the Kali Yuga, or in the age of quarrel, this artificial predominance is already current, but the saner section of the people know it well that the divisions of castes and orders of life are meant for smooth social intercourse and high thinking, self-realization, and not for any other purpose. Herein, the statement of Bhagavatam is that the highest aim of life, the highest perfection of the institution of the Varna and Ashram Dharma, is to cooperate jointly for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 4.13. Atak pumbira dvija shesta vanashrama vibhagashaha sunustitasya dharmasya samsidir hari toshanam. O best among the twice born, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation, according to caste divisions and orders of life, is to please the personality of Godhead. Namo Vishnu. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vrasai Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatim Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskadyade Siddharne. Varna and ashram. They're meant for the, basically speaking, to get something to eat. That's the main point of Varna ashram. And then avoid sinful activity. Control the senses. Now, getting something to eat is not as simplistic as sometimes we may imagine. After all, Krishna says, Anad Bhavati Bhutani, that all living entities subsist on food grains. So we need food. If we don't have food, neither our body nor our minds will be very healthy. people may be thinking that I can fast my way back into the spiritual world. But that's not how things work. You can fast yourself into another body, probably a much thinner body in your next lifetime. But that doesn't mean you're going to be in the spiritual world. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was having the pastimes in the Gambhira, and in those pastimes, no one was allowed who was not a pure devotee into the association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu during the nighttime kirtans he was having. But one time some brahmachari, who was living only on milk, asked Srivas Thakur, can I please come to this kirtan? After all, I'm sinless. I live only on milk. So Srivas Thakur said, well, I guess you are sinless. So you can come. So the kirtan was going on, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I can't feel any ecstasy. There must be someone here who's not a devotee. And he asked Srivas Thakur, is there anyone here who's not a devotee? Well, there's one brahmachari who only lives on milk, and therefore he must be pure. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, you mean if one just drinks milk, he can obtain Krishna? He said, where is he? So Srivas Thakur took the brahmachari and took him outside. So we're all living on food grains, anad bhavati bhutani, but just eating is not sufficient. We have to know where the food grains come from. Parjana anasambhava. Grains come from rain. Now, of course, nowadays people think there is no demigods. It's all coming by accident, except for those who are trying to control the weather. In other words, they have a means of controlling the weather, such as seeding the clouds. Usually what happens is that they seed the clouds. They have a certain type of chemical they put on the cloud, and then it's too much. Like in the middle of the desert in the Middle East, one time they put too much chemicals into the clouds and they drowned the city. They turned it into a fishbowl. And sometimes there's no rain. Prabhupada gives the example that in India, when he was there's a big drought in South India. And then the devotees decided to have a big kirtan and big harinam, and they went there and there was rain. Hopefully the rain will come after the padayatra. So rain comes, food comes from rain. The grains come from rain. They grow. There has to be rain, water. And anad bhavati bhutani parjana anasambhava. And jagna bhavati parjana. And rain comes from sacrifice. Now everyone is sacrificing, but generally not for Vishnu. And even when thinks I'm sacrificing for the demigods, actually in front of every mantra in the Vedic hymns, there's Om indicating Krishna. So all the Vedic mantras are all meant for satisfying Krishna. Just like if someone says someone's name, then immediately one feels a little satisfied, especially if it's done in a nice way. If you say, Bhakti Prabhav Maharaj. He said his name is not so nice. And we say, Bhakti Prabhav Maharaj. Then, immediately the person pays attention, the devotee pays attention, and it's pleasing. So we say, Hare Krišna, Hare Krišna, Krishna, Krishna, oh, Krishna. Then do we think Krishna is very pleased? Of course he's pleased, Krishna is easily pleased. But he's not as pleased if we say, Hare Krišna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We say it's as nicely as we can, and Krishna is much more pleased. So the Vedic hymns are meant to please Krishna, and even those who are chanting the Vedic hymns, they're trying to do it in a very, we could say, controlled or a sophisticated way. If we listen to the Brahmins chanting the hymns, it sounds very nicely. They're not going, shnik, shnik, ram, ram, day, 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 hey, kitty, kitty, hey, kitty, kitty. They're actually singing, they're singing the mantras very sweetly, actually, in perfect harmony and rhythm, with perfect intonation and stress. So it's not by accident that the Vedic mantras are actually only fulfilled if they're sung with proper intonation, proper stress, proper rhythm. They have to be sung very nicely to Krishna, and then Krishna reciprocates. And the same thing when we chant our Hare Krishna mantra. It's a sacrifice. Yagya Sankirtana Prayera Yanti Hi Sumedasa. So it's not that the Brahmins, they learned how to chant the Vedic hymns and they did it very nicely. They spent their whole life chanting the Vedic hymns. To learn, one, how to chant Ah, I don't know if I got it right, Ah. It takes 6 months in Gurukul to learn how to chant Ah properly. And that means you have to go through so much austerity. Controlled eating, controlled sleeping, controlled mind. Because unless the mind's controlled, we can't hear how to chant it properly. If one can simply hear how to chant the mantra properly, then one can repeat. But if one can't hear it, then you can't repeat. So, Parjana Anad Bhavati Bhutani Parjana Anasambhava Jagna Bhavati Parjanyo Jagna Karma Samudbhava. But Yaga is born with prescribed duties. Now in the Varna ashram, everyone has their duty. And as long as we're not liberated, we're naturally going to have some kind of duty also. It's not that everyone has a propensity to be a preacher immediately. Of course, the whole idea is to, by the Hare Krishna mantra, to raise ourselves to a platform of realization, of experience in Krishna consciousness, and then we have something to talk about. We're not going to talk about how to perform Ashvamedha Yajna, because that would require that we were born in a Brahmin family and that we were trained since our birth how to chant the Vedic mantras, not only trained how to chant them, but how to live a life so that we'll be able to chant them. But we have our propensity, and we don't have so many complicated duties, making garlands, doing some deity worship, cleaning the temple, cooking prasadam, distributing books, going on Harinam. We don't have a whole lot of complicated activities to do. They're all very simple in one sense. And if we were actually part of the Varna and Ashram system, which Prabhupada eventually wanted us to at least train people in Varna and Ashram. Why? Because without Varna and Ashram, there is no food, practically speaking. Now we can imagine that, well, everyone has food. You just go to the grocery store and you buy your food. But that's not reality. Prabhupada gives the example that it was actually in China, when the communists came, they asked the peasants there, where do you get your food from? And some of the peasants, they were going to church, and they said, well, we get it from God. God supplies. So the communist said, well, go to the church and pray to your God for food, for bread. So they all went, my dear Lord, please give me our daily bread. And then they came back to the communists, and the communists said, so did you get your bread? And they said, oh, no, dear communist friends, we didn't get any bread. So now pray to us. Oh, dear communist friends, please give us our daily bread. And then the communists called for trucks of bread to come and distribute it to the peasants. Then the communists asked, so, who's better? Your God is better or you're better? Oh, dear communist friends, you're better, because you're giving us our daily bread. But Prabhupada said, if I was there, I would have asked him, my dear communists, where did you get the bread from? But because people don't see, it's coming from sacrifice. So why in our society we still have some bread or some food? Because of our past pious activities, because of past sacrifice. If one was a mudha in his past life, then generally in his next lifetime he's born as an animal. Mudha means uncontrolled senses, living like an animal, practically speaking, no God consciousness. But if some God consciousness, some Krishna consciousness is injected into a mudha, then he becomes a Shudra. He participates in the Varnashram system as a Shudra. He may be in ignorance, but because he's assisting the higher caste in sacrifice to Vishnu, therefore he's hearing about Krishna all the time. From higher authorities, he's understanding who Krishna is. He's seeing the plays and the dramas. He's going to the festivals and taking prasadam. So he's becoming purified. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he went to an astrologer, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a Brahmin, and therefore he could go to the village, Navadvip, where he was living, and he could beg things. He can ask for things, and everyone was happy to give Chaitanya Mahaprabhu whatever he wanted because he was a Brahmin. So, one time he decided he'd go to an astrologer to find out who he was in his last lifetime. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was curious. So he went to an astrologer, but this was a very qualified astrologer. He didn't have to look in an ephemeris to find out where the planets were. He'd simply go into meditation and he'd see whatever he was looking for. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked the Brahmin, who was I in my last lifetime? So the Brahmin went into meditation and he more or less saw this picture over here. First he saw this fish swimming in an ocean. He thought, this man doesn't look like he was a fish in his last lifetime. He's a Brahmin. How did he become from a fish to a Brahmin? So he got a little confused. Then he saw a tortoise. He said, tortoise? A little bit better than the fish. I still don't think he went from tortoise to a Brahmin. Then he saw a boar. He said, well, this is really getting confusing. Then he saw a half man, half lion. He said, wow, my God, who is this person? So the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, so who was I in my last lifetime? And the Brahmin said, well, I'm really confused. It's been a really bad day. I must have done something wrong. Maybe you can come back tomorrow and see, maybe I'll be in better consciousness. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, just try harder, just try harder. So he went back into meditation, and then he saw Buddha, and then he said, wow, I know who you were in your past lifetime. You were the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, no, you're wrong. I know who I was in my past lifetime. In my past lifetime, I was a cowherd boy. And because of the pious activities of herding cows, in this lifetime I was born as a Brahmin. So without cow protection, there can't be human civilization. It's impossible to have a civilized society without cow protection. Because if one does not have cow protection, just like we can see in modern society, without cow protection, they've invented so many different things to get food. Because the bull is like a tractor, and the cow is like our mother, it gives milk. Now nowadays there's vegans. Vegans are actually still a minority, and practically speaking, in terms of spiritual material worlds, it's a very small minority, because everyone in the spiritual world there's no vegans in the spiritual world. And no one has ever gotten sick in the spiritual world by drinking milk there. So it's a misconception. Of course, nowadays, they don't take care of the cows very nicely. They inject the cows with all kinds of hormones and all kinds of drugs. Plus, they feed the cow all kinds of grains, which cows are not supposed to eat, instead of allowing the cow to go out and the bull to go out into the pasture and eat the fresh grass. So the milk, and then they homogenize it, they pasteurize it. Therefore, people have difficulty sometimes digesting milk. But milk is the most nutritious food. It's the only food that actually turns into ojas, into the basic energy for our immune system within 24 hours. All other food takes 30 to 40 days to turn into ojas. And it gives one a motherly consciousness. Because the milk, the cow is milk is the only food given out of love. The tree doesn't give an apple out of love. So it infused one with a devotional consciousness, and at the same time, as Prabhupada said, it feeds the finer brain tissues. But people don't appreciate it, and therefore they've invented things like margarine. You know what the difference between plastic and margarine is? Does anyone know? One molecule, or one atom actually. Because margarine, generally speaking, it turns into plastic after you eat it. But then again, people are transhumanists nowadays, so they don't mind becoming a machine. Maybe they'll get a plastic heart after taking enough margarine. Or plastic brain. And people are very proud that they say the milk is not meant for human beings, it's only meant for the calf. But nowadays there are hardly any human beings, so why should they drink milk? In any case, as soon as the cow is killed, as soon as the bull is eaten and killed for all its different parts, which is what modern society is based on, still based on the cow and the bull, but killing them. Then the whole complexities of modern civilization develop with the tractors and the factories and the artificial fertilizer, then the insecticides, the pesticides, the herbicides, and the peoplecides. They all come one after another. And eventually we get the war machines, because there's not enough fuel, supposedly, to drive the tractors and all the different factories that are producing all the plastic items for us to so-called enjoy. All the cars to go to the supermarket, all the trucks, if you go on the road nowadays, the road is just crowded with trucks bringing supplies. Previously, people in primitive time, what they think is primitive times, they didn't have to drive in the highways. You didn't have to breathe the wonderful fumes coming from the trucks and from the cars. You didn't have to go to your work and drive an hour if you're lucky. Through the smog and all the horrible things that are going on. Then you didn't have to drink polluted water. Nowadays, of course, maybe here in Slovenia tap water is drinkable. But in America, if you go to different parts of America, you turn on the top tap, then this fumes come out. So you're advised not to have your tap water too close to a fire because it might explode. Such is progress. And it's inevitable that people will get completely confused. Milk is bad, margarine is good, cars are great, bullocks are primitive. Now, if two bullocks crash into each other, there's usually not a deadly accident. Therefore, they didn't have to have ambulances and people, to drag them away into the hospital and put tubes through them. Because maybe you scratched your leg or something. 2 bullock carts crashed. No big emergency. So we made everything very complicated, and we're quite proud of how complicated everything is. We call that progress. But the Varnashram Dharma is meant to make everything very simple so we can get our food. Not only just food, but organic food. Everyone used to eat organic food previously. You didn't have to go to the store and buy special food. Everything was organic. And everything was locally grown. And you didn't have to go to a store to buy it. There was one movie called Super Size Me. Did anyone ever see that? Super Size Me. The person who was in the movie just recently left his body. He decided to do an experiment to see what would be the effect of only eating McDonald's products from McDonald's for 1 month. So he did a medical checkup before the experiment. He was perfectly healthy. All his blood tests, everything was perfect. After 1 month of eating McDonald's, he was almost dead. And then he did an experiment in the movie. He put the McDonald's hamburger, all the products, McDonald's hamburgers, McDonald's, under a glass to see what would happen after time. So after a few weeks, like the hamburgers turned a little yellow and red and green, kind of became like a rainbow, because the bacteria started to eat it. So after a month or two, everything turned yellow or green or pink or whatever, different colors, except for the French fries. They looked exactly like they were when he put them underneath the glass. No respectable bacteria got near it. So you can imagine eating it. Probably after 5,000 years from now, someone will dig up someone's body, and if they went to McDonald's and ate the French fries, probably the French fries will still be in their stomach in a pristine condition. So that's modern advancement. With all the preservatives and chemicals that they're using, they're making it practically impossible to digest the food. And they're calling that progress. And then they wonder, why are people getting so sick? Why do they have so much heart problems? Why do they have liver problems? Why do they have mental problems? Why do they have so many problems? Because they're eating things which are indigestible and turning into poison. They're being poisoned. The air is poisoning them. The water is poisoning them. Their food is poisoning them. The ether is poisoning them. And then they wonder, why am an innocent person like me getting sick? I live perfectly according to the laws of nature. I only go to the best fast food stores in town. I drink only the bona fide tap water. I live right next to a factory, so the air has a certain aroma, which I've gotten used to. It smells like roses. Besides that, everyone needs a few extra chemicals, and I'm sure by living next to this factory, I'm getting all the metals, all this I need in my body. I don't have to take any extra vitamin pills. All the supplements are right there in the air. So people have become bewildered, they've lost their intelligence, and if something Varnashram, simple living, is introduced to them with pure fresh food, clean air, fresh water, nice relations with people, they think this is primitive and barbaric. But it's actually civilization, the basis of a sane mind, peaceful life, where one can actually understand himself as a spiritual being and understand how the super soul is within our heart, guiding us, and how the goal of life is the most beautiful person who's the source of everything. And when one complicates one's life, then simply one has to struggle. Struggle just to get something to eat, and the quality will be such that it will not actually help one's development of consciousness, but actually simply cause one to struggle even more to survive in the material world, without any idea of what the actual purpose of life is. So, Varnashram Dharma is important. And the aim of it is explained here, is so that we can chant Hare Krishna nicely. A simple life where we can chant Hare Krishna nicely, have nice relations with people, have a healthy life, and therefore peaceful life, and therefore be able to appreciate how nice it must be in the spiritual world, and therefore develop desire to go there. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? Comments? Yes.
Thank you for inspiring lecture. I would just like to ask, in our lives, how can we, to the greatest extent possible, simplify our lives? How could to not be so engrossed in this complicatedness that you mentioned?
Don't eat too much or eat too little. Atyahara. Atyahara means, ati means too much, ahara means to eat. So, if we eat too much, then priyasas, we'll have to endeavor to get the money, the support, so that we can eat more. And then, in order to do that, people generally don't give us too much just by telling them about Krishna. What we have to do is we have to start talking nonsense to people, trying to convince them that something that's worth €2 is actually worth 10. So we have to learn the art of cheating people in order to get money. Or business means cheating, etc., etc., according to that. And therefore life becomes more and more complicated. Just as that story we know, the Brahmin who had only a pair of underwear, kopins, is living by the Ganges and chanting Hare Krishna. One day he was bathing in the Ganges and he put his underwear out to dry. But a mouse came and stole his underwear. So he thought, now that the mouse has stolen my underwear, what am I to do? So he begged another piece of underwear. But he was nervous that perhaps there's more cats around here. There's more mice around here, I should say. And they might steal my underwear again. So he begged a cat to protect his underwear from the mice. But then the cow wanted some milk, so he had to beg a cow. But in order to milk the cow, because it was too technically advanced for him how to milk a cow, he got a wife. But the wife wanted some children, so he had to get a house. But in order to pay for the house, he had to get a job. But in order to pay for the job, to go to the job, he had to get a car. But to pay for the car, he had to get he had to work at night. So now he had 2 jobs, a car, a house, a wife, 2 children, a cow and a cat, all to protect his underwear. So finally he decided that probably in the future he wouldn't have enough resources to protect his underwear. So he took his underwear off and threw it away and just walked away. So that's material life. Don't throw your underwear away. Anything else? Hvala Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.
Jai.